Today we're taking a look at the GTX 1650. This is about the least powerful card from NVIDIA's GTX 16 series that I consider picking up today. You really want to avoid the absolutely disgusting GTX 1630, which unfortunately for me, I will be doing a video here on soon. The GTX 16 series was legendary for bringing affordable yet powerful GPUs to the masses. My first gaming laptop had a GTX 1660 Ti, and that thing was an absolute beast at the time. It managed practically everything I threw at it. One of the GTX 1650's biggest advantage in 2026 is that its Turing architecture still receives NVIDIA Game Ready driver support. That's no longer the case for the GTX 10 series, which now receives only security updates rather than game-specific optimizations. We can see the potential consequences of that in games such as Forza Horizon 6, which our Pascal-based GTX 10 series cards aren't officially guaranteed to work. And owners have reported crashes, errors, and graphical issues, even though cards like the GTX 1060, 1070, and 1080 are considerably more powerful than the GTX 1650. But before we even look at the test system, I need to make one thing very clear. I cannot recommend buying a GTX 1650 unless you find one for an excellent deal or it comes as part of another system. In the eBay listings I checked, the regular GTX 1650 was priced extremely close to the GTX 1650 Super. In some cases, the Super was only $5 to $10 more. You can even find the GTX 1660 Super with 2 additional gigabytes of VRAM for roughly $10 to $15 more than some GTX 1650 listings. At those prices, the regular 1650 simply doesn't make sense. Despite that, we still need to find out what this card can do. Let's take a look at our test bench and see how well the GTX 1650 performs in 2026. Starting with the CPU, we're using the awesome Minis Forum motherboard and CPU combo, featuring the Ryzen 9 7945HX. This is an absolute beast of a processor, with 16 cores, 32 threads, and running on AMD's Zen 4 architecture. It has a base clock of 2.5 GHz and can boost all the way up to a blistering 5.4 GHz. Paired with that CPU, we have 2 48 gig sticks of DDR5 memory for a total of 96 gigs, running at 5600 megatransfers. Needless to say, that's far more CPU power and memory capacity than this graphics card needs. This ensures that the GTX 1650 itself will be the limiting factor, allowing us to push it as far as possible. And now for the star of the show, we have the GTX 1650. This was NVIDIA's entry-level Turing GPU, and one of its biggest advantages is its low power requirement. Our card draws everything it needs through the PCI Express slot with no additional power connector required. That makes it ideal for small form factor computers and turning an old office PC into a gaming beast. The fact that it only takes power through the PCIe slot is a big reason for why it sells similar to the GTX 1660 Super. Our particular card here is the OEM version from Dell. It features 896 CUDA cores, a base clock of 1485 MHz, and a boost clock of up to 1665 MHz. It also includes 4 GB of GDDR5 memory, which is somehow the same amount found on certain modern GPUs. RX 9050. Before we begin the benchmarks, I'd like to take a moment to talk about today's channel sponsor, Twingate. Twingate has been a huge supporter of the channel, so make sure to show them lots of love down below. If you work in IT like I do, you've probably dealt with the classic, "I can't connect to the VPN" ticket. The most frustrating part is that you often have to fix the VPN before you can even begin fixing the user's actual problem. That's where Twingate comes in. Instead of relying on a traditional VPN that users constantly have to connect to and troubleshoot, Twingate can run quietly in the background. Users barely have to think about it, while IT teams can securely access exactly the systems and resources they need. That means fewer VPN-related help desk tickets, faster remote support, and considerably less time asking someone to disconnect and reconnect their VPN for the 3rd time. You can learn more about Twingate using the link in the description below. Thank you again to Twingate for supporting the channel. Now, let's get into the benchmarks and find out exactly how well the GTX 1650 performs in 2026. The first game we'll be taking a look at is Forza Horizon 6, which is a recently released title, and like I mentioned before, some users have experienced frequent crashes from the 10 series GPUs. Thankfully here we saw no game crashes or graphical errors due to having driver support, and we ended up with a very respectable 35 FPS average on the high preset at 1080p, which, if you are new to the channel, for the most part in most games, 30 FPS is a totally playable experience for me. The next game we'll be testing is Cyberpunk 2077, set to the medium preset at 1080p, with no frame gen or resolution scaling, which applies to every test we are doing today. Now, for Cyberpunk 2077, we saw an average FPS of 36, which will be a bit lower in actual gameplay, from 30 to 35 FPS, which again, is a playable experience for me if it's all I have. If you want a higher frame rate, you can always drop the settings preset or the resolution. That is the beauty in PC gaming. Now for a title that was more built for this GPU, we have Fortnite running at 1080p on the performance mode. And while this game is for sure more CPU bound than GPU, you still need a GPU to push those frames. For Fortnite here in a couple matches, we received an average FPS of 342, which is just amazing if you want to only play esports titles like Fortnite and Counter-Strike 2 and etc. This will get the job done perfectly. Just make sure to pair it with a CPU that has plenty of cache to push those high frame rates. Taking a look now at some more demanding games, we have Arc Raiders set to the high preset at 1080p, and we got a very good FPS average of 34, which for a multiplayer title like Arc Raiders, most of you out there are going to want 60 FPS. So I'd recommend dropping the settings to low and resolution to 900p to achieve a 60 FPS experience. But for a casual player like me, these settings maintain the beauty of Arc Raiders and is still very smooth. Taking a look here at the latest LEGO Batman game, we have this title set to the medium preset at 1080p. And we actually saw a very smooth 37 FPS average, which this game really surprised me, because in lots of my previous tests with other GPUs, this game has been very demanding on low VRAM systems. But we had zero stutters and the frame time was great. I could totally play through this whole game on this GPU. Now for a bit older title, we have Grand Theft Auto 5 running on the high preset at 1080p, where we saw an average FPS of 84, which is excellent for these older AAA titles, and really any game from this time frame is going to run fantastic on this GPU. Last but not least, my favorite title to test, we have Arma Reforger set to the lowest preset at 1080p, where we saw, unfortunately, an unplayable experience of 26 FPS on average, which even for me is completely unbearable. It is slightly more playable at 720p, but still can't hold well above 30. This game is very finicky and is hit or miss sometimes on certain GPUs. In conclusion, the GTX 1650 is for sure a capable GPU in 2026 and can handle a ton of great titles. Now, you definitely won't be able to play a lot of the latest and greatest titles at high settings or resolutions, but if you are okay with that 900p metal preset or 1080p low preset range, you can really have an enjoyable experience here. And this will play tons of older AAA titles perfectly at amazing frame rates. If this was the only GPU I could own, I would be very happy with its performance. If this was the only GPU I could own, I would be very happy with its performance. Let me know down in the comments if you are using one of these, and if so, are you planning to upgrade or are you happy with it currently? Thank you to all of you out there watching my videos. You guys are seriously so awesome, especially for enabling me to have great sponsors like Twingate. I'd love to produce videos like these full-time for you guys, and you are all helping in achieving that goal. Seriously, thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.